Hi, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Dave, and we're the IB English guys. Today, we're going to talk about reading a drama excerpt, and we're going to look at one of the most famous plays in American theater, and that is A Streetcar Named Desire.
That's right, folks. We know a lot of you are studying drama in your IB program, and today we want to show you how to read carefully a passage and get to a main claim. Mr. Giles, before we get into the passage, let's just talk about 10 features of drama that we want to think about when we're annotating.
Yeah, the first thing we want to think about are the stage directions. We want to think about how those stage directions are written so that the playwright is describing all the different things that we're looking at in terms of the setting.
Yeah, we also want to think about the setting, and that would be the time and the place, right? We know that time and space is one of our areas of exploration. So for A Streetcar Named Desire, we're in New Orleans in 1947. This guy's good.
Yeah, absolutely. We also want to think about the set, and the set means the backdrops and some of the different elements that are on stage, like furniture and different things like that, because that makes up the set. Is it minimalistic or is it detailed? All those things are be described.
Yeah, we also want to think about where are we in the plot, and we want to use those words judiciously when we're doing our analysis. So you want to think about, are you in the exposition? Are you in the rising action? Are you at the climax? Are you at the falling action? Are you at the resolution? We want to integrate those words, use that language in our writing.
Yeah, and of course, because it's a drama excerpt, we're looking at dialogue. We're thinking about characters speaking to each other, and we want to look at that dialogue carefully and look at the tone, look at the language that they use, to look at moments of conflict, because those are things that we can talk about.
Yeah, we can also talk about props. The playwright's been very careful to put some concrete nouns in there. What are the characters holding? What's placed in the room? Oftentimes, these props have great symbolic weight, and we want to talk about symbolism when we talk about drama.
That's right. We want to think about sound. We want to think about sound effects. We want to think about music, all the different elements of sound that make up, carry a lot of meaning.
Yeah, also we want to think about, in addition to sound, how about the lighting? Who is illuminated? What is illuminated? Where is our eye being drawn through lighting? Very important to consider lighting.
And lastly, we think about atmosphere. Drama has atmosphere, and want to think about that. Think about what kinds of tension is there. How can we describe the atmosphere and the mood that a particular scene has?
Mr. Giles, before we dive into the passage, could you give us a little bit of context about A Streetcar Named Desire?
Yeah, it was written in 1947. The play principally is about Blanche Dubois. She's a kind of aging Southern belle that's going to visit her sister in New Orleans. And New Orleans is a melting pot. And her sister Stella has married a man named Stanley Kowalski. He is a Polish immigrant, and they have a very passionate relationship. And now Blanche is going to rock their world.
She is. Now, the scene we're going to look at today is towards the end of scene 3. And this is the famous scene that you may have heard when Stanley yells, "Stella," multiple times. And because it's so prominent in theater, we thought we would attack that today.
That's right. And prior to this moment, in this scene, Stanley has just struck Stella. And that moment of domestic violence and abuse has caused Stella to leave and run away to Eunice's apartment. So this is the aftermath of that violent episode.
This is where Stanley's trying to call Stella back. There's that moment of regret, and we see how this plays out. Mr. Jaws, why don't we just go top to bottom through the passage and talk about what we noticed and talk about some of these dramatic elements?
Yeah, I notice in the dialogue, he says, "My baby doll left me." And again, he's kind of infantilizing, calling her a baby doll, and that infantilizing language. I think that metaphor really shows his relationship to Stella, but also shows his heartache.
Yeah.
Notice in the stage directions, he's shuddering with sobs. It's very detailed about how much he is like grief-stricken by the separation with the woman that he loves.
Well, thinking about sound, we hear, and we see in the stage directions moving forward, we know that he has a shrill voice, and we hear dissonant brass and piano sounds in the background. So this is a moment of conflict. This is a very discordant moment in the play where the characters are being pulled apart, and Tennessee Williams is going to try and push them back together with sexual tension. So the sound is really important here.
Yeah, and the lighting, because the room dims out to darkness. And so that darkness is really showing this atmosphere of heartache and tension.
Yeah.
It's in the night light.
Right. So you can talk about the set. We want to talk about the set, right?
Further in the stage directions, we notice that Stanley is throwing his head back like a baying hound, and he bellows his wife's name. This is very powerful language. He's really described in an animalistic way, like a baying hound, and he's calling his wife's name, Stella. It's almost like a mating ritual, the way it's described.
Yeah, he is a very animalistic character, and we see that dialogue. We talked about dialogue before. There's some elongation of the dialogue here where he yells, "Stella," right? And that's a really profound moment in the play. It's something people remember remember? And we can see that he's described as howling as well. So that, I'm sorry, that's Eunice says, quit that howling, right? So she commands him with that imperative command to stop that animalistic behavior, stop those animal noises, get a hold of yourself,
Yeah,
Cameron.
she's an important character because she stands between Stanley and Stella here, and she's telling Stanley to pipe down and stop doing that. And then she threatens, you'll get the law on you. Notice the colloquial language and the dialect to show Eunice's kind of police loyal society.
That talks a lot about the time and the space, right? That's dialect for that you would find in New Orleans, right? What does Eunice say next, Mr. Giles?
This is, I think, a really powerful moment, and I think this is why we chose the passage. She says, you can't beat a woman and call her back. Again, she's the voice of morality. This is what you can't do. You can't beat on somebody and hit somebody and then just call her back. Well, and then she says,
She's Go ahead.
or we'll turn the fire hose on you, same as last time.
Same as last time. That really implies that cycle of abuse, and it's spoken with a very angry tone. This is Tennessee Williams making some really strong commentary on domestic violence. Don't do this. Do not do this, especially multiple times.
Yeah, and this humbles Stanley. Notice that he speaks humbly, and he says, Eunice, I want my girl to come down with me. So again, he's pleading with her, but then she slams the door, and what does he do?
With heaven-splitting violence, right? So we have that really rich adjective, and he screams her name with that animalistic way, Stella. And this is that moment that most people remember from A Streetcar Named Desire.
And the next stage directions, note, Stella does not speak. She speaks through her actions, and what she does is very important. We notice that she slips down the rickety staircase in her robe. So this is her act of forgiving Stanley for what he has done.
And then they come together with low animal moans. I think this is the second time the word moans is being used here. This is very sexually charged stage directions here. So despite this domestic violence, it seems that there's something is bringing them back together physically here towards the stage directions.
And he loves music, Tennessee Williams. So now we have a low clarinet. So now instead of dissonant music, we have a low clarinet that's moaning, which conveys a sort of sensuality. And then we have this moment where Stanley falls to his knees and he presses his face to her belly, curving with a little maternity. So she's pregnant.
Yeah, so we can really see that symbolizes that intimacy. So they've gone from violence to intimacy, in a snap, Mr. Giles. So that kind of takes us to the end of the passage. Mr. Giles, this is a really rich extract that we pulled here. What is this extract about? Let's go to a main claim. This is an extract about...
It's about anger and violence.
Yeah, this is an extract about passion, Mr. Giles.
This is a passage about sexual tension.
It's about forgiveness.
This is a passage about regret.
This is a passage about the cycle of violence.
This is a passage about power.
It's a passage about relationships and redemption.
Yeah, great.
Okay, can we use some of those key words now that we've just listed and arrive at a main claim, Mr. Giles? If we had to write our thesis statement, what could we use those words and come up with?
Okay, here's what we came up with. Through this excerpt, Tennessee Williams uses dramatic elements to communicate the idea that sexual tension can shift the power in relationships and perpetuate the cycle of violence.
Really clear main claim, Mr. Giles. I think if Tennessee Williams were sitting here whispering in our ears, he'd say the same thing. The key words that have come out are sexual tension, power, relationships, and cycle of violence.
Yeah, it really does show that violence that just runs throughout this play. Even though this is an iconic moment and people celebrate, Stanley's, that performance by Marlon Brando, we have to really think about what...
It's not to be celebrated.
It's not.
This is domestic violence. This is serious. Folks, in the end, we hope that going through these dramatic features and annotating a passage and going into a main claim will help you with your drama studies as well. Stay with the channel, keep on watching, and we'll guide you to IB success.
Thanks, guys.